Hi family, welcome back to Mama's Knee. I'm your host, Minister Iris Winters, and you know me, I always got a question. So for the last few weeks, we were talking about sexual assault. My question to you, do you know what trauma is? Something to think about, because we take our little habits, hurts, and hang-ups in our past. We don't think about them as trauma. Come on back and we'll talk about it. Hi, family. Welcome back. Thank you. So, we have been talking about sexual assault, and I've come to learn that it's a traumatic experience. And I was talking to my daughter-in-law, who is a therapist, about that. So, today I want to welcome and honored and joyfully and godly proud of my daughter-in-law, Mrs. Sasha Winters. Sasha Winters is a therapist, and we're going to let her do a lot of explaining about trauma, about seeking counsel, and going from there. So, Sasha, first of all, tell us who you are.
Where do I start? Well, I'm Sasha. I'm 31. I'm a mom, a wife. I'm a reader. I'm learning that I do actually love to cook and those type of things. But educationally, I'm a licensed professional therapist, certified in trauma, board certified by the state, and also nationally certified by the National Board of Counselors. So that's who I am.
Now, as long as I've known Sasha, she's always said that she was going to be a therapist. But you know what? I've never asked you. Why? I've never, because that's always been your path. Yeah. But I've never asked you why.
So when I was little, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then I realized quickly that I don't do blood. I don't do bodily fluids, any of that. So I said, okay, I'll be a doctor of the mind. Because, I could still help people. That was my main track, like wanting to help people. And then I started to learn how the brain works and why we do the things that we do. And then it just snowballed from there.
But you stayed that path ever since I've known you. Mm-hmm. So what is the educational path that one would take to get where you are?
It's surprising. Like, a lot of people don't realize, like, you actually go to school technically for 12 years. You do your undergrad, which is 4, sometimes 5 years, depending if you have a minor or a specialty. Then you go to grad school. Grad school is technically about, I'll say 3.5 years. It's 2 years of schoolwork and then a year of internship. And then you have to get, at least in the state of PA, you have to get 3,000 clinical hours. And in the state of PA, you can't get more than, I think they just changed it. Before was you couldn't get more than 1,500 hours a year. Now you can't get more than 17. So technically you take about 2 to 3 years to get your hours. And then you have to apply for your license and take your test. Now you could take your test before or after your hours, depending on where you went to school. But that process alone is a year itself, because by the time you sign up for your test and you get your education and everything gets approved, it could be 6 months until they sit you for your test. Wow. Then after they sit you for your test, you get to apply for your license through the state, and it takes 8 to 10 weeks before the state even looks at your application. Then after they look at your application, they might send it back for discrepancies. And each review for discrepancy can be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So I submitted my license in June of 2023, and I wasn't awarded my license until January of 2024.
Wow.
So that took 7 months.
You mentioned school. Where did you attend?
For my undergrad, I went to Shippensburg University, and I got a minor in disability studies, and my coursework for psychology was mostly in childhood development. And then I did my master's at Grand Canyon University, and I did it online, which was actually a benefit to me because nobody knew that COVID was going to happen.
Right.
So if I didn't go to an online school to start, I probably never would have finished my master's, but it would have been prolonged more because they didn't know what they were doing at the time with people who had to take clinicals and be in person. But that's how I got introduced to telehealth, because I did my clinicals in COVID, and then I started counseling in COVID.
So where do you work at?
So, a lot of places. A lot of places. My main counseling place is Neurofeedback and Counseling Center. It's on Front Street. I do most of my therapy there. And then I also work at Supportive Care. They provide therapy to individuals who are in nursing homes. And then I have my own practice. So then I do counseling hours there too.
Now that's what I definitely want to get into the meat and potatoes about that. But let me ask you this question. Oh my gosh, what other jobs have you had to get to this point? You know what I mean? Like there's a path, and sometimes people think it's just straight, just like that. So what other career paths have you taken that would lead you up to this, or what do you need to get to this point? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because when you graduate, they want you to have at least 2 to 3 years of experience, but you need your degree in order to have experience. So God was definitely looking out for me favor, and I got all of my experience while I was in my undergrad. So when I graduated with my undergrad, I had 6 years of human services experience with my bachelor's degree. So that opened a lot of doors. I was able to walk into management jobs. I was able to go from not just direct care, but be like caseworkers at the age of 22, and then build that experience from there. So I started out in customer service at FIA. I think that's where we all started out. And it was easy because I could talk to people, and they usually would be irate customers calling in about their student loans. So I got a lot of my mediation skills from that. And then after that, I'm trying to remember. I worked in a nursing home. I did personal care in a nursing home. And then after a nursing home, I got my first job working with individuals with autism. I worked at New Story. And so that's a school for students who have emotional support needs and maybe have other developmental disabilities that don't allow them to be in a traditional classroom, whether it be because of like IQ needs or whether it be because of behavioral needs. So I worked there as a behavioral support specialist. Then I worked as a TSS and a respite and all of those type of things for youth advocate programs. So I did a lot of like direct care for a long time, for at least 4 to 6 years. And then I got into case management. My first case management job was with Alma Health. And then that's when I became a regional manager of case management, which really helped with understanding like Medicaid and the issues that go on with people who need services, and also learning how to provide them those services. So kind of becoming a social worker before even becoming a therapist. And then I did a clinical specialist. So for Keystone, that's when I was more into the treatment realm. So you need a lot of experience in all different areas of human services. I think that's the best thing for when you're becoming a counselor, because you're going to sit across the couch from somebody who's going to have a rainbow of things going on. So they might need, just a little bit of personal care, but how do they get that, or how do they communicate those needs? Or maybe they're struggling fighting the systemic things that we have going on in the world, like they need food stamps or adequate housing. And it's not, as a therapist, you don't solve those things for them, but you're a resource place, or at least you've seen people in those situations before, so you can at least tell them that, they're not alone, things like that.
Big question, because I work in a field where there's a lot of MSWs, LSWs, all of them. And a lot of them have gotten derailed getting to that point. Some straightforward, that, they got their masters, the whole bit. But I know personally, because she is my daughter-in-law, I don't see how you stay as focused and driven where you have never, ever derailed, ever, where you're surrounded in a family that we get derailed pretty often. How do you do that? What's your motivation? What's the advice that you would give to somebody? Because right now, the things that's going on in life, it's very hard. It's very expensive to go to school now. What would be your advice to them to help them stay on track?
My advice would be to, one, paint the picture. Like, you have to know what the end point is.
I like that.
You do. You have to, and I mean, literally paint the picture. Like, I've drawn my practice so many times, right? I've written Winter's Wellness in so many places. If you ask, all of the boys, every house we ever lived at, our Wi-Fi was something that had to do with Winter's Wellness, because it had to be in front of me. Because if I moved it to the side, then I would have been derailed too. So it had to always be right there in front of me. And then having kids made it more of a focus, because I was like, you guys need that freedom in life. You need the freedom in life that a lot of little brown kids don't have, where your mom can come to every game, where your mom can pick you up from school, drop you off at school, where your mom can go on school field trips, because I have that freedom and flexibility in my career, but also the stability with it. Like, I can provide you a good life with it, but also have the flexibility to show up for you. So that was that kept me focused a lot. And then just the passion too, to want to help people. Of course, we all graduate and think we're going to solve the world, cure cancer, do all those things. But it is literally the clients, when I see them grow, and I'm just like, that keeping this train moving. Because if I could see 20 people a week, and even if that changes every 3 months, that's that many people that I'm helping throughout a year, throughout 5 years. And
how long does somebody stay in treatment with you?
I've had
people. It can differ, but
yeah, it can differ. I've had people stay with me from the beginning, so 4 years, and then I've had people stay with me as little as 2 months, 3 months. A lot of the barriers when people stay for shorter amount of times is insurance and money. It can get pricey. It can. But for me, the barriers that I faced, what kept me going, is that no can't be an answer. Like, I never had a plan B. When people were like, well, if you don't become a therapist, what do you become? There was nothing else. There was always a therapist. So there was never a plan B. But also becoming a caseworker and a social worker first, I knew that barriers were just the lack of resources. It wasn't something that I couldn't move. I just needed a resource to help me move that barrier. So yes, school is expensive, but that's what financial aid is for.
Right.
And even if I couldn't get full financial aid, well, then I guess I'm going to have to get, what do they call them now, where you work and then they pay for your school. Or, I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to go part-time then. It's just going to take longer, but I'm going to get there.
So with that, you said something about children. How do you balance? Because I know you are very busy, yet I see you showing up. I see you showing up for your husband, your children, me and my husband and my children. How do you balance that? Like, aren't you dead tired when you go to bed, Sash?
But I think I strive off of that. Like, I'm not a person, as you know, I can't sit still. Like, I came here after work, and usually after this, then I go be a mom. Then after that, I go be a wife and start all over again. I strive that way. My brain doesn't work with idleness. Like, I can't just do one thing in a day because I have ADHD, so I need to stay on one topic a day. But I can't have just one thing going on in my life. I need to have constant movement.
Now, you said something about ADHD, so that brings me to this question, because we assume that just because a person's a professional, they don't have certain diagnoses or things like that. And so when I was in therapy, I had a psychiatrist, and she had to do her self-work. So for therapists, is it mandated, or do you just know this is something I must do?
I have a quote that says, if your therapist doesn't have a therapist, find another one.
I love it.
There's no way. The amount of things that we hear within a day, the amount of things that we go through in our profession, you need a space. And even if it's just your supervisor that you can call and vent to, like, there's no way that someone can keep sane with all the stories and not have an outlet.
So what's your outlet?
My friends, my family, and then I have colleagues. So I technically have a supervisor because I work in her practice. So if I have like a professional concern, but if I have like a clinical concern that I just need to talk it out, I have other colleagues that are also therapists.
So how do you deal with your ADHD? How do you deal with the things people come to see you for? Have you had your own traumas?
Oh yeah. So I tell people all the time that, like, you're looking at me or I'm giving you the things I can give you because I've been there. I'm late diagnosed ADHD. I didn't get diagnosed till I was 29, until after I had my son. So I had to learn all my skills late in life in regards to just ADHD. But I've had trauma, I've had heartbreak, I've been in poverty, I've, just the trauma of having kids. I've been hospitalized, very sick. all of those things. I'm a Black person in America. I've been discriminated against.
Right.
I'm a woman, so I've been sexualized in aspects where I shouldn't be. All of those things.
Do people take you seriously because you look like a kid?
They do. They do.
Good.
I only had one time that I had somebody look at me and say I was too young to be their therapist. And in my head, I was just like, if you only knew.
That sounds like something I would say back in the day before I knew better.
Yeah, if you only knew. But then I also get older clients who are very shocked. And I tell them, it's not just my professional experience, it's my life experience. And my husband would agree. Sometimes it's like we live the life of people twice our age.
I do agree with that. So, what is your favorite age group, if I could ask, to work with?
Probably the ones right around my age, because I feel like I can relate the most. So people who are older than me, I can still relate, but right around my age, like we grew up at the same time, we had the same things going on in our life when we were at the certain ages. I don't mind doing younger kids, but if you're in your 30s, you know some of the things they say, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't say that to me in regular words. I don't know what you mean. But at the same time, I like it because it keeps me on my toes for my kids. Like,
Right.
I've been there, done that, seen that, because I've had teenage clients. So.
What are your specialties?
Trauma. Trauma is a big one. And I feel like trauma is all encompassing. It encompasses sexuality. It encompasses like personality disorders. It encompasses mood disorders. It encompasses marriage, couple concerns. It encompasses parenting. It's like, I don't know how I could have been a therapist without being trauma certified, because if you're coming to me to sit on my couch, that's meaning you've been through some things. And I say that lightly because some people do just come for direction, for guidance. Like, maybe they're 30 and they don't know what they want to be in life yet. So not everybody comes with trauma, but it's
What is trauma?
Trauma is an adverse or a troubling experience that you've encountered that has changed you. And I know that's so vague, but that's what it is. And that the definition of trauma is vague for a reason, because other people will say, well, that's not traumatic. Right. And it's just because it's not traumatic to you doesn't mean it's not traumatic to me. I had a coworker when I used to work at the hospital one time say, my fish died, but Sasha would classify that as a level 1 trauma. But
right, so to them, right.
But what if your fish was very special to you? What if your grandma gave you that fish before she died, and then that fish was with you for 5 years, and then the fish died? That's a pretty big trauma, because now you feel like you lost a piece of your grandmother. So that's why trauma is very subjective as to what you experience.
The people that I come in contact with on a daily basis, professionally or personally or socially, I find that they don't know what trauma is. And I had to think about what was trauma to me, because for me, my age group, my family background, my culture, to say I've been traumatized means to say that, oh, you were beat to death. No, you were spanked. Or really, that's not poverty.
Like if you were fed, clothed, had a roof over your head, you were traumatized.
Exactly.
Right.
But what equated that to me when I was talking to someone, and it was like, oh, not the life that you had growing up. You had the perfect household. Oh, you didn't live in my household.
Right.
I did not realize how traumatized I was from my parents arguing. Now, my parents were never physical, but my parents were very vocal. And so I brought that into my marriage. And I'm thinking, ooh, okay. When I thought about trauma, and then there were some things that have happened in my life, and I was thinking, okay, they don't got PTSD. Like we just like, because we think that there's a lot of people my age think that, okay, you're just throw around words and everything else. But when you look at them and you say, that is traumatic. I was and where I got this from actually and learned it is like 2-3 years ago when we were in the accident.
Yeah, 3 years
and
ago.
Sasha had to say, I mean, again, like she's my daughter-in-law, but when I saw her, as soon as I saw her, I bust out and start crying because I can be vulnerable with her where I feel like with my boys, always going to be mom, but she's more like a daughter to me, and it's kind of different. But after we were talking, he was like, Mom, that's traumatic. It is traumatic. Like, you know, because I was freaking out. I'm pumping. He's over here pumping the brake. And I'm like, I just can't take it. I can't take it. And I was like, that is traumatic. Like we were somebody hit us when we were dead stand still at 55, 60 miles an hour. So what is the process? Like I want to get help for, and I'm going to start with this one, for sexual abuse trauma. What is that like? Because we've been talking about that here at Mama's Knee, and I realized that nothing could be more traumatic than that.
Yeah, it's definitely because it breaks, like it's such a vulnerable act to engage in sex, period. So for it to be a traumatic and vulnerable experience, it is one of the top. But I wanted to make a comment that like people, you were saying like people your age really don't take trauma as what it is. Trauma technically wasn't an actual diagnostic medical condition until the 70s. Like the person who facilitates my certification training for trauma was one of the groundbreakers. Like they did, you know, research for years. Now, mind you, that was in the 70s. They finally like, okay, there might be something to this. But back then it was called shell shock because it was only for veterans.
Yep.
And it was only for veterans from the Korean and Vietnam War.
I remember
because
that.
it was so traumatic. But then it turned into other, you know, it just developed. It didn't turn into PTSD until the 90s. And then actual treatment, like professionals knew about it and were educated about it, but where like I'm certified in it and I go to classes to learn trauma-informed treatment, that didn't start until the 2000s. And now in 2024 it's being perfected, where you're getting very specific training on people with autism who have trauma, or people of color who have trauma, or sexual abuse trauma. So now it's being, you know, categorized, and there's very specific treatment for it. But that's why a lot of people don't really see it as not a thing, but they're like, oh, it can't be that bad. It can't be that traumatic, because back then it was for only, you know, soldiers who came home and maybe tried to kill themselves or were very abusive to their families. But to get treatment, it's not really a process. You just say, I need help.
That part.
That's probably the hardest part, is
is
realizing that you need help. But if you have someone you trust and you just say, I need help, I'm sure they're going to say something to somebody that you need help. But any medical professional has a responsibility that if you tell them you need help, they have to find you something, even if it's just a call to your primary care physician to say, hey, they told me this. Could you send them a referral somewhere?
And nowadays your PCPs usually ask you that question. Mine do, and they know me, they know all my family, but they still ask me that question. Why? And I have to agree with you. You said something earlier when you said the barrier sometimes is insurance. And I have to tell you, when the time that I needed mental health treatment, if I would have had regular insurance, I wouldn't have done it.
Right.
I was coming off of a bad emotional and mental breakdown at that time, and I had Medicaid.
Right.
And I started my treatment with Medicaid. Then I got a job. Then my insurance, you know, I don't have $20.
Right.
Now this was then. Now my is 50 for special specialties. So,
and sometimes that's not, behavioral health's not covered under specialty.
And that's the thing. And I just kind of like found that out.
Right.
So it's like, what happens when there's that fine place where I'm in treatment, I'm getting help, and I'm coming to but I can't afford my copays, or, you know, or my deductible. You go through all of those things.
You do.
Is there help?
There is.
For the person in between?
There is. So I'm learning more now that there is more Medicaid services for mental health than we think.
Yes, I agree.
It's just that, finding the right
Yep.
person to get you connected to the right service. But if you have mental health that is so severe to the point where you have to be hospitalized and things like that, the social workers, when you're in those situations, try to find you the best options for coverage. And a lot of times that's when Medicaid may kick in. On a more privatized level, when people come to me and their deductibles are too high or their copay's too high, I try to work with them, meaning schedule wise. So if their deductible isn't met, but our sessions are $140, we'll say, and they can only afford $140 every month, then I schedule you every month until your deductible is met. But then we talk about what other resources are out there, like free support groups and things like that. But unfortunately, it's the number one reason why people stop.
Yeah.
It's because it can be expensive.
Very expensive. Definitely had to be over 20 years ago because I didn't have Jaden at the time. But I have a paper and I have the receipt because I kind of weird like that, but it reminded me of what I was going through at the time. And from my psychiatrist, it was $75 every time I went there.
That's cheap.
Back in the day,
for a psychiatrist, that's cheap.
Yeah, it was back in the day, and I'm thinking,
but even 20 years ago, because a psychiatrist now is anywhere from, we'll say, $150 to $400 every time you see them, depending on what you're seeing them for. Therapy is anywhere from, we'll say, high end $200 to a low end. Maybe somebody does some, fee, like lower fee for service work, $50. It depends on the practice and the location and all those things. But I've seen my own personal therapy bills, and they're high.
Yeah, and that was after they only pay, insurance companies only pay for a certain amount.
That was the leftover.
Right. But I needed that therapist. And at that time, thank God that my husband was working and made very good money, but that was expensive. But can I tell you, and I never wanted her to kick me out the practice, so I paid her. And it was the best thing ever.
I would say if you ever can't afford it, don't be afraid to tell your therapist that you can't.
Right.
Because again, we're a medical professional. We have an obligation to make sure you get the right amount of care. Even if it's not with us, we're going to make sure you go somewhere, maybe another practice.
Between life and death.
It really can be. It really can be. That's why there's laws like we can't abandon our clients for that specific reason, that it can be life or death.
Explain that.
So, especially being a trauma therapist, I've had a lot of clients that are suicidal, whether they've actively attempted within the last 6 months or it's historic or they just have ideations. But if they don't see me one time or they can't come back to me for 3 to 6 months, they could choose to end their life.
Yep.
Their stressors could be so overwhelming and they're not secure in the skills that they could end their life. And that's why with every client, we always tell them that if you ever feel like you're going to harm yourself or someone else, call 911 or even just go to the local emergency room, because every emergency room is going to have crisis available.
What do you see the most as far as trauma? Is it childhood trauma? Adult? Because when I see people and I talk to them, a lot of it is childhood.
A lot of it is childhood trauma that's been masked.
Yes.
Been masked as like it's culture, or it was just like not even culture as like people of color, but maybe you live in a rural area. And so, that's culturized, or you lived in an urban area and, seeing crack needles on the ground is culturized, like those type of things. It would definitely be childhood trauma that isn't uncovered until adulthood. There's a lot of times that people are sitting on my couch and they're just wide-eyed because we've just uncovered a trauma that they didn't even realize was a trauma.
And they mask it with alcohol, drugs, shopping, sex, gambling, gaming, whatever, those things too. So how many clients do you see in a week?
At my full-time practice, like at the one that I work at, I have 20. I have 20 open slots. At the facility that I work at, I see anywhere from 10 to 20 people a day. I know it sounds like a lot, but it is, but it's not. And then my private practice, anywhere from 5 to 10 people. So that's 50 people. That's a lot of people. It's 50 people in a week sometimes.
Girl.
Yeah.
Talk about your private practice. Talk about Winters Wellness Center. I'm so godly proud of you.
I mean, I don't know where to start because there's so much to say about it. There's so much, right? Right now, it's not little as in its power, but little as in its starting point. It's at the very beginning, but it's my peace place. Like when I walk in there, like my brain just everything goes silent. It's warm, it's inviting, but there's also like, wow, I feel like I built it like by every microfiber on the carpet, like just in that little space, because I remember again just dreaming about it. And then I remember like being in school and thinking about it, and then all up to signing the lease. So like it feels surreal. Every day it feels surreal.
So where do you get money to start your business? Like
I work.
Okay, it's out of your pocket.
That's why I have so many jobs. I work.
Yeah. Where are you located? What's your number? How do we reach you?
It's 2001 North Front Street. We are right next to the Governor's Plaza. We're in Building 1. My email address is winterswellnesscenter@gmail.com. And our phone number is 717-559-2468. So you can call me. You can email me. I wouldn't show up because I can't guarantee I'm there, so I don't want to say I'm going to be there.
So what are your hours there?
It's whenever somebody needs me right now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I try to fit them in to when I'm available.
I also heard you give trainings now and speeches and things like that. How does that come about for you?
I think it's natural because as, again, a medical professional, one of our obligations is to teach. Like psychoeducation is an actual form of therapy to provide education about different psychological concepts. So I would say I see it as an obligation that if somebody needs me to speak on sexual trauma or childhood abuse or something like that, it's my professional obligation to do so.
So what if I come to you and I need medication?
I can refer you. I'm actually currently working to partner with another Black psychiatrist that's located in Harrisburg. It's a Black psychiatry practice, and it's heavily needed because a lot of people come to me, they need psychiatry, but everybody's full. Now, psychiatry is a practice that it is very hard to get into. Therapy is hard. I'll say therapy is probably like mid-level hard, but psychiatry is really hard to get into as a patient, like seeking a psychiatrist.
Because I have, where I work at, there's it's taking you what? It's 6 months to get in?
Yes.
And I'm thinking, so what happens in between that time? Because one of my patients/clients, they really needed that help. And I'm afraid that, they will try to commit suicide. They did not have a plan, but that's a long time.
So in those cases, and I don't mean this to say this to bog down the ER, but go to the ER. Right. Because again, crisis has to see you. They have to have you referred to services. That's also why in COVID, I kind of felt the type of way when they said we wasn't first responders.
Right. Yes, I agree.
Which, I agree. The first responders that are on scene, they definitely deserve all the credit. But when that client is waiting that 6 to 7 months, it's me. It's me that's seeing them 2 to 3 times a week to just make sure that they don't kill themselves. Right. It's me that's constantly filling out safety plans and safety assessments with them and making sure their family members are aware of their possible plans and making sure they have their knives locked up and they don't have access to pills. Wow. And that's me, on the other end. So that's what happens in that 6 to 7 months is they wait with me. I recently just went through that with a client and it was hard. And in that time, all you can give them is support and grace. There's no need to say, well, you're not reaching this goal and you're not doing this skill. I just let them show up to each session as they are. And a lot of clients will say to me, why do you let me come back? I feel like I'm not doing anything. I'm like, you're sitting here. And I mean,
Wow.
that means the work. But it's a world of difference once they do get into psychiatry.
So they can see a therapist quicker than they can a psychiatrist.
Usually, depending on their insurance. Yeah.
Depending on their insurance. And that's a big thing. So what insurances does the Wellness Center accept?
We currently accept Capital Blue Cross and Highmark. We are pending for Medicaid, Cigna, and Optum. Hopefully, we will know about Medicaid within any moment. I'll say Cigna and Optum probably before the end of May. So if anybody has Cigna, Optum, you can come as an out-of-network client, and then I can bill you, and then you can bill your insurance. But for Capital Blue Cross and Highmark, I can bill them straightly, like bill the insurance directly.
That's nice. That's good to know. Because I would think, oh no, I can't go there. You know, where do you see the Wellness Center in 5 years?
In 5 years, I see us at our second building with at least, I'll say, 2 practitioners under me and working on what I'll call as our second wing. So the Wellness Center is actually sevenfold because of what the number 7 means in the Bible, and it's also my life number. It's the number God's given me for all the things that have happened in my life. But it's not only mental, it's physical, it's financial, it's community, it's spiritual. So there will be a space for everyone at the Wellness Center. If you need to come in because you need your taxes done, there will be a space to get your taxes done. If you need to come in because you need prayer, there will be ministry there. You know,
Amen.
There will be everything there. If you want to come in because you want to learn how to become a physical therapist, there will be that. There will be educational centers there. I plan to have a community library. Like, it's all
A wellness center.
a wellness center. The Wellness Center. So the umbrella is the Wellness Center. And then the therapy part is Winter's Wellness.
How can we support you? If we wanted to help you out, wanted to do something, what do you need?
Word of mouth. Say, this is the place that I know that you could get help. That's basically it. Word of mouth.
Last question. So you talked about God and the conversation. How much of your life choice to be a therapist is Sasha's, what she feels is her driven, as opposed to your calling?
It's all my calling.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
Yeah.
And I don't know what time in life I specifically realized it, but every day I'm reminded, whether it be, you know, getting an office. Like, I saw this office online, and my husband said, well, message him. And I messaged this guy, and he got back to me within minutes. And I'm seeing the office within a week, and then before I even leave, he emails me and say, I'm going to send you a letter of interest so you can sign the contract. And so things like that, the seamlessness of doing my career. Like, yes, I did reach barriers, but I really do think those barriers were the devil, because he was trying to sidetrack me. He was trying to throw me off, because whenever I did show up for my career, God was just like, okay, there you go.
And I've seen that, so that's why I've asked you that. Like, it's favor, but God, it's been favor. So, and I'm honored to know you and to share a life, a family, because like, we sit here and we're talking, we do this every day, all day. We share, we head our household and our family of men and now girls. But what happens when you need to be a therapist to us?
I know. I know. But
now
no.
That's funny.
I'll always show up for you guys, because you've always shown up for me. So it's nothing to listen to JC talk for 5 hours, or, you know, be there to settle Jaden's anxious mind, you know, all of those things.
Yeah. And I have to say, and you know I say it always, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I have had my moments, and sometimes when I'm quiet and say, oh no, I'm fine. Sasha texts me and she'll go, Mom, I'm just checking on you. One time I was going through a real bad thing. She's trying to get me out the house. She's trying to get me to go work out, you know, and I thank you for that. but she's always checking in on us. And sometimes it just be the two of us, and we'll have, because I think I'm a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but I play one. But we'll talk and we'll go, or we'll watch for the boys, which are my sons, her brother-in-laws, or, our husbands, nephews, everything. Like, we check everybody, out. So we're going to pray for them or whatever. But I thank you for showing up for us. Because I have to be honest, being in our family, it's a lot. And this is Sasha all day long. And I want to I got to say, thank you, Selena, because you have her spirit.
Yeah.
Because I don't see how you can do what you can do without that. And I was thinking about that today when when I'm preparing my mind and praying for today, that I love you, Selena, and thank you, because you are your mother in that sense. And I don't
she's
know,
not moved easy.
Right. And I don't know how you do it. And I have to say, because y'all know I share my life on here, we've been through a lot. And we still together. I always say to my son, you married Sasha just for me. But it's a God thing. I always say, was it the name? Is the naming and Ruth?
Yeah, Naomi and Ruth. Yeah.
But I thank God for you, and I thank you for checking on me.
Yeah.
And so we're all joking, go, we can't see Sasha, and my boys actually think, if I had something wrong,
right?
But she does, in her own way, mother us, counsel us, and things like that. The boys go to her all the time. My two boys.
And that's how I know it's also a gift, because I talk about that with people all the time. Like, I could be in the grocery store and then all of a sudden I know about all their marital issues. Whoever walked up to me that day. And even for the boys, I feel like it's just random times we're in a room together, and now I've had a whole life conversation with you because God has brought it to that point.
Yeah. And I thank you. I do. But I'm very godly proud of you, and I'm godly proud of the Winter Center. And check us out.
But I wanted to read my mission statement and the purpose, because
all right now,
because you don't get what the Wellness Center is or Winter's Wellness until you read it. So I have to just go to my email and pull it up.
All right now. Tell me your mission statement. Tell me your purpose.
It has to do with the sevens, as I was saying.
And that's new to me, because I don't think we've ever talked about that. So
no.
I'm interested to,
Of course.
Because we talk hurt so much that,
But there's only one S in wellness because there's only one you. As in yourself.
Aww.
And I actually got that from my mom, because she would always say the thing, if we were running around and we fell and hurt ourselves, and she would be like, you have to be careful. I only have one you.
Aww.
I can't remake you. And so when I started building the Wellness Center, it was actually a typo when I went to go make my email that there was only one S. But then I was like, no, that's what it's supposed to be, because there's only one you. So,
because you're looking for it, you can't find
it. I know, because I'm looking for it. I done sent it to 90 people.
And now you can't find it.
No, that's okay. But that's the biggest part, is there's only one S in wellness, because there's only one you.
I like the 7 concepts. I like that. And I look forward to seeing what God will do. I hope that He blows your mind.
He will. He has already blown my mind.
From the office. What?
Yeah, but not even that. So the reason why the 7 areas came up is because God is the lily of the valley, and in a lily there is 7 petals, or usually there's 7 petals, and so 7 is the number of completion, and there's 7 areas in life when in psychology. But so I went over the 7 areas, and so there will be 7 centers, and so he is the one that gave me those 7. So he already blew my mind when, and that's the logo of the wellness center is the lotus, the lily.
Yeah.
And if you look on it, it should have 7.
It should.
It should.
All right now.
So yeah.
Be Mrs. Winters. Family, you got it. You gave us a lot of good information. Most importantly, I want to stress prayer, God, counseling. Please, there are so many of us out here hurting. And I want you to stay tuned in the months to come, because here at Mama's Knee, where we're full gospel, Evangelistic Ministries of Harrisburg, God's going to do something for his people. And we're going to be spearheading some things. We're going to be inviting Sasha back, along with myself, Minister Byron Linder, the pastor, Nancy Linder. I just want to put that out there. And if you know me, you can always reach out to me. I'm always going to listen. And if I don't know, because I don't, this is what God has given me to do. But by profession, no. By spirit, yes. I love you. I thank you for spending time with us here. And I thank you, Sasha.
Thank you.
Winters.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes. I love you, family. I'll see you next week. Until then, be blessed. Get help if you need it. And I'll keep you in my prayers. I love you. Bye-bye.